Welcome back to the movie recap. Today's movie will be a 2015 Danish war drama film titled A War. Sit back, relax and enjoy the video. The movie begins in Helmand, Afghanistan, where a group of soldiers walks the valley as they inspect the area. Everything is calm as they stride the valley and update their condition and location through working communications. Dolly informs the company commander, Claus Michael Peterson, about their area as the soldiers arrive on a flat surface. They examine the place for a while, then suddenly, one of the soldiers named Anders Holm steps on an explosive. The soldiers hurriedly call a medic for their comrade and quickly move toward him to provide first aid. Lasser shoves gauze and bandages in Anders' severely injured legs and is unfortunately amputated because of the hit. One of the soldiers communicates with Claus back at the military camp. On the other hand, the rest of the soldiers assist a wounded Anders. One of the soldiers checks his breathing, which becomes weaker, so they give him CPR, but it is not enough to save his life. He loses so much blood that he eventually stops breathing. This incident leaves Lasse obviously upset about what happened. Back in the military base, Claus discusses with the soldiers that Anders is declared dead on arrival. Then, he asks about what they feel about it, to which they all feel awful and frustrated for losing a friend and being hopeless while trying to save him. Finally, the commanders understand what the other soldiers think and say they just have to let the steam off. At that moment, Claus decides to accompany them on the next patrol. Back in Denmark, the wife and 3 kids of Claus also have their own lives to live. As Maria comes to her son's school to pick Julius up, his teacher Birgitte notifies her about his son's behavior. He fought with the other boys and bit one of them. Meanwhile, Julius plays soccer with the other boys, and Maria approaches him so they can go home. He pretends to hear nothing as his mother calls him and continues to ignore her. Finally, after multiple shouts, she comes to him and pulls him gently to go with her and take him home. During dinner, she tells her children that their dad will call them soon. Then, the children have to go to bed. Claus calls Maria late at night and tells her about what happened during the day. Maria reassures him that they are doing well. Claus wakes up the next day to see Lasse crying on his bed, and he gets up and moves closer to comfort him. Lasse confesses to him that he wants to go home because he never feels better after what happened to Anders. In addition, he suffers from self-blame because he switched with Anders when it occurred. However, Claus indicates that he cannot send him home, but he can only assign him to do assignments in the base for weeks to calm him down. He sits comfortably on his chair and asks if he has a family, so he talks about his younger sister. Hearing his story, Claus encourages him to give them a call. During their patrol, the soldiers meet Afghan children and greet them. The children are ecstatic to see them and even offer to shake their hands. Then, the soldiers observe the area and inquire with the civilians there. Later, they hear one of the soldiers, Ritter, yelling at an Afghan. He points his rifle at the man, who is panicking because of the armed soldiers encircling him. Stouffer translates for the Afghan and the soldiers, and he utters that he has an ill daughter that badly needs help. Soldiers start to proceed to their homes and carefully check their surroundings. They confirm that there is a girl with a wound on her arm, so Jones assists in giving her aid by cleaning her wound and changing her bandages. Claus then assures the suffering girl they can come to the camp if her condition worsens. On their next patrol, a soldier sees a grenade buried in the ground, possibly remote controlled. Knowing this discovery, Claus immediately orders backups to come to their position. The soldiers observe the children playing under a faraway tree from an elevated ground. They see a man riding a motorcycle approaching the kids, and he makes them surround him. Then, he starts digging, which they believe is with hostile intent. Claus waits for an order to open fire, and the man digs out the grenade and carries it with one of the boys. Then, he rides away and slows down to let the boy escape. Marius tries to gun him down but misses on the first try. Fortunately, he succeeds at the second one, and they quickly travel down to the location of the dead man and take photos for evidence. The soldiers observe a man carrying 2 cloth sacks in both his hands in the camp. He is then followed by a woman holding 2 children. The soldiers face them and inspect them as they reach the gate, and they realize that he is the same Afghan man with a wounded daughter they helped during one of their patrols. He says the commander told them to set out to the military camp to ask for assistance if the Taliban is ever after them. The soldier confirms it with Commander Claus and welcomes them with the woman soldier translating for them. She tells Claus that the man complains that the Taliban come at night, and they know that the soldiers helped them once. The Taliban wants the man to be a warrior for them, or they will kill his family. Claus then settles the situation by saying that they should come home and they will force the Taliban away from their area tomorrow. But, unfortunately, the Afghan refuses and insists on staying the night. Still, Claus apologizes because he cannot grant the man's wish. So instead, he requests to keep his children in the camp, and then he will leave them alone. Still, Claus disallows them to stay and assures him that they will patrol the area tomorrow morning. Upon leaving the camp, the man clearly looks upset and scared for his family. The following day, the soldiers assemble and surround the area where the Taliban is reported to be roaming. The place is unusually quiet, which indicates that they are prepared for their arrival and are waiting for them to attack. For their repositioning, Claus demands Lars, Jones, Michael, Butcher, Stouffer, and Lasse to be with him as they enter Compound 3 to look into the families. On the other hand, the others are assigned to Compounds 6, 7, and 8, but the place they're patrolling seems silent and inactive. The soldiers inspect the area and its rooms and are shocked to find the Afghan family shot dead in their home. Lasse starts to breathe heavily, and the picture of the dead family discourages him. And so Claus instructs a soldier to bring Lasse away from the area. After a few seconds, they hear an explosion from a nearby area, assumingly from Compound 6. They communicate through the radio and strive to identify what is happening. And at that moment, a soldier screams that Lasse has been hit. He hurriedly advances to Lasse's location and sees Lasse hiding behind a short wall, where he quickly drags him back to his comrades. While putting pressure on Lasse's neck where he has been hit, bullets are coming from everywhere, and they have no insight into where the enemies are. Their only report is that the opponents are shooting from a western direction. Knowing this, the soldiers aim, fire, and cover each other during the exchange of bullets. Jones yells as he tries to keep Lasse awake. Unfortunately, his heartbeat continuously drops. Claus loses his temper as he feels frustrated because of Lasse's worsening condition. So he demands to be given air support to save Lasse. Meanwhile, soldiers keep on making Lasse retain his consciousness. A few moments later, they carry Lasse on a blanket and drag him as they wait for the helicopter. Luckily for Lasse and them, the helicopter arrives and safely evacuates them. In their military base, Claus announces that Lasse is flown to Bastien and is patched up in England. Then, they play a video of Lasse confined in a hospital, and he shows them a paper with the writing "Hey boys" on it. The soldiers smile in relief as they watch him alive and give them a message. He proceeds to say that he misses them and jokingly reclaims the statement. However, he never forgets to thank Claus for saving his life and reminds the soldiers to look out for each other. Unknown to them that his heartwarming message will deepen the bond between brothers at war. In one of the camp tents, Claus casually talks with his comrades when Najib requests a moment with him. He notifies him that the commander is in his office with 2 advocate corps, so Claus progresses to his office and inquires about their visit. They claim that they had an interview stating that Claus is liable for casualties involving innocent civilians. He has no charges for now, but it is possible for him to have one soon. He confirms what he is being charged with and decides to give a statement to the commander. The commander then examines if he is present in Adam Khankhali on September 21 at 9:30 and if he commands the attack to Compound 6. He affirms the statement because he claims the enemies were in Compound 6. That same night, the other soldiers are being questioned for their narratives. Then, the commander declares him to be charged with bombing the location where 11 civilians were killed, leading to him being ordered to travel home. Claus rides the plane back to Denmark, and his family patiently waits for his arrival. Back in their home, he finally has the chance to spend time with his children and play with them. Given their time alone, Maria asks him why he went home, and as he hears her question, he instructs that they get inside because of the cold. The couple's conversation is inaudible, but it seems like Claus fills her in about the charges he will face. The following day, the couple meets a lawyer with whom he discusses the testimonies of the other soldiers. He mentions that Claus was recorded from a helmet cam to have given the order to bomb a location without a PID, which means that if he saw enemies in the area where he commanded the bombing. He says that the authenticity of the evidence can be contested. The lawyer adds that he is being accused of killing civilians, and the absence of PID at the time of the bombing is what will make him guilty of the pressed charges. The day of Claus' trial finally comes. Lasse is one of the audience, and other soldiers are there to listen. The judges then arrive, and the trial commences. First, Claus' lawyer challenges the authenticity of the photographs, but the prosecution side disagrees, saying the military police verified them. Then, the prosecutor plays the video on the helmet cam of Lars Holm, which implies a lack of PID. Still, Claus was pressured during that time, and he rages to force his subordinate to request air support and lie about having PID. Next, the prosecution exhibits the dead bodies of civilians, including children, in Compound 6. During Claus' turn to explain his side, he discusses their positions and what the soldiers were doing during the heavy fire. He says they received a report that the enemies are at Compound 6, but he cannot remember who informed them. The prosecutor quotes what he said during the combat, contrary to his statement that he knows who is in Compound 6. Claus is frustrated as he explains that the TOC would not give them air support even if it is the only thing that could save them, especially Lasse, from dying. The prosecutor questions if he remembers who gave him the location of the enemies. He answers that he cannot remember because they were fighting under heavy fire. He says he reacts that the enemies are located in Compound 6. Still, he is unaware of women and children in the exact location. Finally, his lawyer asks about his statement, "I know who is in there," which means that Claus is given the pit. On the subsequent trial, 2 soldiers from the TOC who can assume command during the combat are invited to make a statement. They confirm that they did not observe the enemies in Compound 6 and did not give Claus the pit. So the prosecutor calls the next witness, Najib Bisma, and is first examined if a company commander usually joins during patrols as often as Claus, to which he refuses. Yet, he states that Claus is the type of person who leads the way. The prosecutor reveals that Najib signed his testimony and that he has doubts about Claus' judgment. Najib continues to say that despite his testimony of Claus' poor decision, he tells them he is the most capable leader he knows. It is their duty to assure their men's safety and to get them home in one piece. However, he declares that Claus should not be out there but must be in the camp with the overview. The next day, Butcher joins the trial. It is brought up to the table that there was a clip of him ordering Claus to bomb Compound 6 because he discerned muzzle flashes from that location. This information is new to the court, which makes the prosecutor question how he could get an insight if there is heavy fire. He says that as the commander gets up to get an insight into Compound 6, he also gets up behind him, and that's when he sees the muzzle flashes. The statement not being heard in Lars' helmet cam's voice clip is questioned. Still, Butcher says he is away from Lars and behind the commander. It is not stated in Butcher's testimony but is also not signed. The prosecutor continues to ask about Butcher's failure to talk about the muzzle flashes. Still, he answers that he was not specifically inquired about them, that's why they are not included in his initial testimony. Finally, the lawyers make their closing statements. After that, the judges announce that they will have to deliberate the case, and the trial concludes. On Thursday, they are back in the trial court. The judges enter the room, and everyone stands. They finally pronounce that Claus Michael Pedersen is acquitted, and the Treasury will pay for the costs of the trial. Everybody in the audience applauds, and their noise makes the judge command them to stay quiet. They are thrilled for Claus to be declared not guilty. Weeks later, the whole family is in the house. Julius points at the map while he states the country's names while Claus tucks him in bed that night. The movie ends with Claus smoking outside their house at night, silently sitting in the dark, lost in his thoughts. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more videos like this to help the channel out. Have a nice day.